Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a TG deck profile. And for those who've watched Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's Txne deck profile. So this is a really interesting deck that basically revolves around synchro summoning some extremely powerful monsters onto your side of the field like Cosmo Blazar Dragon, and some really awesome cards like using your TG Trident Launcher to basically get into any monster that you need into the extra deck extremely easily. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell next so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below because we have all sorts of awesome rewards, you guys, like getting your name in the description of every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, or even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron along with test hand. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of TG Screw Serpent. So Screw Serpent is pretty good because what this card does is basically, if this card is normal or special summon, you get to target one level 4 or lower TG monster in your graveyard except another copy of itself and special summon that target. But you negate its effects, and you can banish this card from your graveyard and then target a TG monster you control and increase its level or reduce its level by 1 as well, which helps out a lot to be able to level manipulate to get the exact level that you need. We then play 3 copies of TG Warwolf. TG Warwolf is pretty good too because when you control, when a level 4 or lower monster is special summoned except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. And then during the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was destroyed and sent to the graveyard this turn, you can add a TG monster from your deck to your hand, which is a pretty good effect just to be able to get you an additional TG and special summon itself to your side of the field. We then play 3 copies of TG Booster Raptor. Booster Raptor is pretty good too because what this card does is if you control a TG monster, you can instantly special summon this card from your hand, but you can only special summon this card once per turn this way. And then once per turn, during the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was destroyed on the field and sent to the graveyard this turn, you get to add a TG card from your deck to your hand, which a couple of the TG cards actually share that ability, like TG Warwolf and this one. We then play 2 copies of TG Striker, which is kind of like Cyber Dragon as well, because this card can special summon itself to your side of the field if you control no monsters. And also, during the end phase, if this card was on the field and sent to the graveyard, you can add a TG card from your deck to your hand, which is pretty good. We then play 2 copies of TG Gear Zombie. Gear Zombie is pretty good too because it lets you target one TG monster you control and special summon this card from your hand, and then the targeted monster loses 1,000 attack, which is not that big of a deal because you're usually special summoning this card to Link Summon or XZ Summon with this particular card anyways, and the card that you use to target this card, so it's not that big of a deal anyways to just target the card on the field and reduce its attack. We then play 2 copies of TG Drillfish. TG Drillfish is pretty good too because it can attack your opponent directly at a whopping 100 attack points, which is pretty funny. But what this card does is if all monsters you control are TGs, then you special summon this card from your hand. And then when a TG monster you control inflicts damage to your opponent, you can target 1 card on the field and 1 card your opponent controls and destroy it, which is the really good effect of this card being able to attack your opponent directly, because even though it does only inflict 100 points of damage, you're still going to pop a card on the field, which makes it really good. We then play 2 copies of TG Tank Grub. Tank Grub is pretty good too because it's a tuner monster, and if you control a synchro monster, or if this card is used as a synchro material for a TG monster, you can treat it as a non-tuner as well. So it's either a tuner or a non-tuner. This card kind of rolls with you in whatever you need, which is kind of nice. And if this card is sent to the graveyard as a synchro material for a TG monster, you can special summon 1 token to your side of the field that's level 1, 0 attack and 0 defense in attack position. So you get another monster on your side of the field to use as a synchro material, which is kind of nice to be able to get an additional monster. I then play a single copy of Cyber Magician. Cyber Magician can only be used, or when this card is used, when using this card as a synchro material for a TG synchro monster, you can use TG monsters from your hand as well to synchro summon. And then during the end phase of this card is in the graveyard because it was destroyed on the field and sent to the graveyard this turn, you get to add a TG card from your deck to your hand. So basically it's Warwolf, Booster, and Cyber Magician that kind of share that effect, and TG Striker kind of has an effect like that too. Then for the non-TG monsters that we play in this deck, we're playing a single copy of Miscellaneousaurus. Miscellaneousaurus is really good because you can discard this card to the graveyard and be able to special summon your copy of your TG Booster Raptor to your side of the field because it's a dinosaur monster, and you basically just want to use this and banish just this card to be able to get that play rolling. You don't really want to use any of your other monsters to do that with because you don't really play any other dinosaurs outside of the next 3 cards, which is 3 copies of Gillosaurus. So you're usually going to want to go first in this deck, and what I've learned about this deck is when you go first, then you have Gillosaurus, you can just special summon Gillosaurus to your side of the field, and if you do, then for example, you can activate the effect that your opponent gets to target a card in the graveyard and special summon it. But if you only control Gillosaurus, it doesn't matter because you're just going to special summon Gillosaurus to your side of the field, and it's not going to super make a difference against your opponent because they're not going to have anything to special summon from the graveyard, which is still a pretty good effect just to get you an additional monster on your side of the field. Now, the reason this card is so good is because it's a level 3 monster that just instantly summons itself to your side of the field and can really get you some insane plays, which is what's so good about this card. I love playing this card as a 3-of in the deck because it's such a powerful, like, small engine in the deck too, because you can summon this card to your side of the field and then instantly have a level 3 as well. So then we're going to be playing 3 copies of Red Resonator. So Red Resonator is a really good card in the deck too, because it has the ability that when this card is normal summon, you can special summon a level 4 lower monster from your hand to your side of the field, which is a really good effect just to immediately get you a monster on your side of the field. I love that effect to be able to get you a second monster. So for example, if you have Gilosaurus in your hand and you have your copy of Red Resonator in your hand, you can normal summon one of them and go for a level 5, which basically this deck revolves around summoning level 5 monsters to your side of the field, which is the really good effect about this card, and I really like playing this card as a 3-of in the deck. So that's pretty much it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Reinforcements of the Army. Reinforcements of the Army is a really good card in this deck because it can add any of your warrior monsters from your deck to your hand, which is a really good effect. We then play a single copy of Monster Reborn. Monster Reborn just helps us get our monsters back on the side of the field as quickly as possible to go in for additional plays. One copy of Reasoning, we play all sorts of different levels from 4 all the way down to 1. So you have basically a lot of chances against your opponent for them not to call the right level. But if they know what you're playing and you're playing TG, they're usually going to call 1 because that's the majority of the levels that you're actually playing, because a lot of your monsters can level manipulate their levels anyways. One copy of Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial lets you send a monster from your deck to the graveyard, which can help out a lot with a lot of the different cards in this particular build. One copy of 1 for 1. Again, you play a lot of level 1 monsters in this deck, so this card comes in super handy. 2 copies of Resonator Call. This card lets you add Red Resonator from your deck to your hand, which is really helpful as well, just to get you additional plays on your side of the field. 2 copies of World Legacy Succession. Now, if you guys look at the link arrows of TG Trident Launcher, you tell me why I'm playing this card at 2. This card's ridiculously good with TG Trident Launcher. We then play 3 copies of Fossil Dig. Fossil Dig adds Miscellaneousaurus from deck to hand and adds your copy of Gilosaurus from deck to hand. It can add your copy of Booster Raptor from your deck to your hand. This card is really good at just getting you what you need as quickly as possible. 3 copies of Fire Formation Tinky, because when this card is activated, you can add 1 level 4 or lower Beast Warrior monster from your deck to your hand, which you have plenty of Beast Warriors in the deck to be able to add from deck to hand. For example, you can grab a copy of your TG Warwolf from your deck to your hand, which is a really good effect. These cards here are basically just really good search effects to be able to thin the deck to get monsters to your hand so you can summon them out to your side of the field as quickly as possible, because you're literally playing 6 searchers in this particular lineup, or not 6 searchers, but 8. You're playing 2 Resonator Call, 3 Dig, and then 3 Tinky. So you're playing 9. I kind of count Reasoning, which is why I said 9, because you're essentially getting a special summon off the Reasoning as well. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of TG Trident Launcher. Trident Launcher is really good in the deck too, because when this card is link summoned, you can special summon 3 TG monsters, 1 from your hand, 1 from your deck, and 1 from your graveyard in defense position. And it has the ability in 2 zones this card points to. And also you cannot special summon monsters for the rest turn except for TG monsters. And you use the effect of the TG Trident Launcher once per turn, and your opponent cannot target TG Synchro monsters this card points to as well, which is pretty good just to be able to protect your monsters on your side. This card's really good in the deck too. Like, it enables the deck to even be a deck nowadays. We then play a single copy of Crystron Needle Fiber. I still think 1 Needle Fiber is totally fine. You can make the TG Trident Launcher ridiculously easy with your copy of Needle Fiber. You could kind of flip it back and forth depending on which way you feel like you need to go. I feel like 1 Needle Fiber is fine, but you could get away with 2 and 1 Trident Launcher. It kind of depends. I go into Trident Launcher a lot in this deck, but 1 and 2 would be fine as well, because basically what you can do is this takes 2 effect monsters plus a TG, so you can go into Needle Fiber and then go Needle Fiber special summon like a tuner monster from the deck, and then go from this into the Trident Launcher and then special summon the 3 monsters and then start synchro summoning like crazy. Now for the synchro monsters, we're going to play a single copy of Cosmic Blazar. Blazar is ridiculously easy to go into this deck. It takes 2 5s and a 2 on your side of the field. It's going to be the way that you're actually going to synchro summon this card every single game. And it has the ability that it must be synchro summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways. And you can banish this card in the end phase to activate any of the effects that your opponent cannot activate cards or effects. Your opponent activates a card or effect, negate the activation if you destroy it. And when your opponent would summon a monster, you negate the activation if you destroy that monsters. and then when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you negate the attack in the battle phase, which is a really good effect. We then play a single copy of Halberd Cannon. Halberd Cannon is a really good boss monster too. It's a little bit harder to summon, but it has a really neat effect that once per turn, or this card cannot be special summoned except by synchro summon, and then once per turn, when this card is face up on the field, you can negate this summon of a monster and destroy it, and then when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can select a TG monster in your graveyard and special summon it back to your side of the field. We then play a single copy of TG Blade Blaster. Blade Blaster is the one you usually summon in this deck the most, because it has the ability that when a spell trap is activated that targets this card, you can send a card from your hand to the graveyard to negate the activation of the effect. And then once per turn, once during your opponent's turn, you can remove from play a TG monster from your graveyard to remove this face-up card from your field from play, and then during the next standby phase, you special summon this card that was removed. So basically, if your opponent targets this card, you can just banish it and negate the effect, which is kind of neat. We then play a single copy of Satellite Warrior. Satellite Warrior can get you multiple pops depending on how many synchro monsters you have in the graveyard, which is the big effect of this card. It does require a tuner monster and a non-tuner synchro monster to go in this card, which is not that hard to actually pull off in this deck. We then play a TG Wonder Magician. Wonder Magician is pretty good too, because if this card is synchro summon, you get to target a spell or trap on the field, destroy it, and if this card on the field is destroyed, you get to draw a card, and then you get to chain during the opponent's main phase. You can immediately have this card resolve, synchro summon, which is pretty good. I played 2 copies of TG Star Guardian. Star Guardian is probably one of the better cards in the entire extra deck, that once per chain during your opponent's main phase, you can immediately have this card resolves, synchro summon, and then you can only activate either of this effect once per turn. That if this card is special summoned, you get to target a TG in your graveyard and add it back to your hand, and then during the main phase, you can special summon a TG from your hand, but you can only use each of the following effects once per turn. And then you get to play a single copy of TG Power Gladiator. Gladiator is just here basically because you can use it as a level 5 monster to go climb into your other monsters. I play a single copy of Naturia Beast. I actually bumped a Naturia Beast into this deck because you can summon it really easily with a Gillosaurus and a copy of Striker, because they're both Earth, which is kind of neat. So you just basically, you special summon out your copy of Striker and then special summon that Gillosaurus. And if you get negated or something, like if your opponent stops your synchro plays or something, or board wipes you and you have the Gillosaurus and the TG Striker, you just go TG Striker, Gillosaurus, negate spells, which is pretty good to give the deck a little bit more versatility where it can negate cards as well with the Cosmo Blazar and the copy of Naturia Beast. It's just really powerful. You play 1 copy of TG Hyper Librarian because this card is limited, and you get to draw a card every single time you synchro summon, which is an extremely powerful effect. 1 copy of the Dragonfly. Dragonfly is pretty good because Dragonfly basically is a level 1 or level 2 monster that you can synchro summon into really easily, and it has the effect of once per turn you can select 1 face-up TG synchro monster you control, except this turn, and send it to the graveyard. And then if you do, if all monsters you control are synchro monsters while this card is used as synchro material of the synchro monster in your graveyard, you can special summon this card. You can special summon them, which is a pretty good effect to be able to just get them back. And then you play a single copy of Formula Synchron as well, because Formula Synchron helps you go into Cosmo Blazar really easily in the deck, and you can special summon it off your copy of Needle Fibers effect if you need to. So that's it for the TG deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really cool deck to play with. I highly recommend that if you guys haven't picked up this deck, you definitely should if you like synchro summoning, because it's actually a really cool deck. I really enjoy this deck, and it's just a fun deck overall to play with because you're going to get into all sorts of crazy synchro plays, and there's a lot of different ways that you can play this deck and get some crazy cool combos off. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell near so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.